Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu, Sanji desu, and welcome back again to my channel. Yes. Ohayo gozaimasu, konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu, konnichiwa, konnichiwa かな。Minasan, konnichiwa, Sanji desu, and welcome back again to my channel. It's Sanji. And guys, if you are just new to my channel, I am Sanji. I am a Filipino living here in Tokyo, Japan. And I make videos about Japan, its culture, foods, places, and everything under the land of the rising sun. So, if you are interested in Japan, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also to follow me on my other social media accounts to keep you updated of my uploads. So guys, yes, by the time that you are watching this video, I assume that you already know what this video is all about from the title and from the thumbnail. So yes, finally in this video, I am going to answer the most frequently asked question that you guys are asking on Facebook, on Instagram. So yes, why am I here in Japan? What is my job? And paano ba ako napunta dito sa Japan? So yes, for today's video, I am going to answer all of those questions. So I know guys that this video has long been overdue, but omatase shimashita. Yes, finally I am going to share with you guys. I just need to clarify the contract and also what are the things that I can disclose and what are the things that I cannot. So guys, but today finally I'm going to answer your question, how and why am I here in Japan? So yes, so if you have been following me on Instagram, so I guess you already know what my job is, but if you just knew me through YouTube, I guess you don't know what my job is. And guys, yes, I am a registered nurse in the Philippines. And here in Japan, I am also working as a Japan registered nurse. Yes. So I am part of the EPA, or the Economic Partnership Agreement between Japan and the Philippines, or what they called JPEPA. Japan-Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement. And that is what this video is all about. So if you want to know more about this JPEPA program, or you are interested in working as a nurse here in Japan, just keep on watching and let us start. So guys, before I start with the step-by-step procedure on how we can apply on this JPEPA program, the first question is, can foreigners really apply and become a registered nurse here in Japan? That is the first question. And the answer is yes. Foreigners can become a registered nurse here in Japan. It is written in their law. Wait. It's written here. Where is it? Okay, so it's written here. Kokenji Josanshi Kangoshi Ho, or the Act on Public Health Nurses, Midwives, and Nurses. So it's written here in the Kangoshi Kokashiken, or National Examinations for Nurses. 外国で看護師の業務に関する養成所を卒業し、または外国において看護師免許と認めたもの。はい。In English, there's an English translation. Person who has graduated from a foreign school or training school for the nursing practice, or who has received licensure equivalent to nurse licensure in a foreign country, whom the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare finds to have knowledge and skill equivalent to or greater than the above, candidates for the national examination in Japan. So it means that if you are a foreigner and you graduated in a nursing school in your country and achieve a nursing license in your country, you can actually take the nursing exam here in Japan as long as the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare finds that you have enough knowledge or skills to be able to work as a registered nurse here in Japan. So you can apply on the Ministry of Health of Labor, and if they find that you are qualified, you can actually take the nursing board exam here in Japan. But I'm not really sure about the requirements. What I know is one of the requirements is you must have a JLPT N1 level. JLPT is Japanese Language Proficiency Test, and you need an N1 level. N1 level is the highest level of the JLPT. the lowest is N5, and the most difficult or the highest level is N1. So you must have a JLPT N1 level, which is kind of difficult to achieve, especially if you're a Filipino and your native language is not Japanese. So I'm not advising you to go through that process, but you don't have to worry because there is an easier way, which is what this video is all about. It's all about the JPEPA program, or the Japan-Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement. Yes. So first, what is EPA? EPA stands for Economic Partnership Agreement. So it's an agreement between two countries. In my case, it's between Japan and the Philippines. So because of this EPA program, the Philippines can send nurses and caregivers to Japan, since Japan is now in need of nurses and healthcare workers. And aside from the Philippines, there are also other countries which is part of the EPA program, and they are also sending nurses and care workers to Japan. Like for example, Indonesia, Vietnam, and I think Sri Lanka and Bangladesh also have EPAs. So yes, the Philippines are sending nurses and care workers here in Japan. So today guys, I'm going to explain to you the step-by-step procedure on how you can apply on this JPEPA program, or the Japan-Philippines Economic Partnership Agreement for nurses and care workers. So first is of course application. So where can I apply? So the application is through POEA. POEA stands for Philippine Overseas Employment. So let's just retake that. The application is through POEA, or the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, POEA. So you can submit your requirements or documents directly on the main office of the POEA in Manila. But if you are in the province, you can submit it on the regional offices in your province. But my advice is, if you can submit it in the main office in Manila, better submit it on the main office, just to make sure. So the next question is when. So when is the application? So the application happens only once a year, and usually it happens on the second quarter of the year. So it means that if it's already March or April, make sure to visit the POEA website, because that is where they will post the announcement if they are already hiring for nurses for the JPEPA program. So there is no like advance notice, so bigla na lang sila magpo-post on their website that they are already hiring for the JPEPA program. And usually from the time that they post the announcement, the deadline of submission is just within like 1 month. So you really need to complete all requirements very fast and submit it as soon as possible on the POEA office. So once the POEA posted an announcement, it's written there how many nurses and how many caregivers they are looking for. So if I'm not mistaken, last year they are looking for 50 nurses and 300 care workers. So it really depends on the year. And also on the announcement, it is written there what are the requirements. So for nurse applicants, the qualification is of course, first you must be a graduate of BSN, and also you must be a registered nurse, or you must have the PRC board license for nurses in the Philippines. And the last is you must have 3 years hospital working experience. So the question is, kailangan ba na continuous yung 3 years na hospital experience? And the answer to that is, on our time, it's not required that it is continuous. So let's say you work in this hospital for 2 years and another hospital for 1 year. It is okay as long as the total is 3 years or more. And the other question is, what if I work in a hospital in other country? So in our time, it's also accepted as long as it is a hospital. And the other question is, what if I work as a company nurse or a clinic nurse? So in our time, it is indicated that it must be hospital experience. So it's not accepted if you are a company nurse or a clinic nurse. But of course, every year the requirements might change, so you must first check that. And then for care workers or caregivers, the qualification is, first is you must be a graduate of any 4-year course, and you must have a caregiver certificate from TESDA. But if you don't have a certificate from TESDA, you can still apply as long as you are a BSN graduate, whether you have a license or not. And then working experience is not required. So some of my friends, they are registered nurses in the Philippines, but since they don't have working experience, they decided to apply as caregiver instead of applying as a nurse. So that is also an option. And aside from the qualifications, you must submit all the required documents, and those are, for nurse, the first is transcript of records, diploma, and a copy of your PRC ID or the license, and then COE or certificate of employment. And if you have a Japanese language certificate, you can also submit that, but it's not a requirement. And next is you must have a valid passport, and the expiry date of your passport must not be earlier than June of the following year. So you must take note of that. And also you must have a valid NPI clearance, multi-purpose, and also you must have an account on POEA. So you just need to register on their website. It's very easy. So those are the requirements for the nurses. And for caregivers, the requirements are this. So you might notice that the requirements for the care workers requires that it must be authenticated by the DFA or it must be red ribbon. But for nurses, it's not required to have that authentication or that red ribbon. But of course, gaya na sabi ko, every year, the qualifications or the requirements might change. So make sure to check that first before you go to the POEA. So going back, once you completed all your documents, you just need to go to the POEA office, submit your requirements, or if you're in the province, you can submit it on the regional offices. And after you submit, the next step is you are just going to wait. And after a few weeks, POEA will post an announcement on their website and they will post a list of those people who are part of the shortlist, which will advance on the next step of this JPEPA program. So if you are part of the shortlist, I think you will receive an email or a text message. But if you do not receive a text or an email, you can still visit the POEA website and check if your name is part of the shortlist. And after the shortlist, the next step is the orientation. So once you are part of the shortlist, you will be asked to attend an orientation or like a mini seminar which will be held on the POEA. And the seminar is mainly about Japan, its culture, what to expect when you go to Japan. And also they are going to explain to you what is this JPEPA program and how the process or the step-by-step procedure is going to be. They will also tell you about the salary, the allowance, board exam, something like that. After the orientation, the next step is the interview. And the interview is held on Crown Plaza Hotel just in front of the POEA office. And the candidates will be divided into two groups, first day and second day. And the interview will be in alphabetical order. That's why the first half of the alphabet will be on the first day and the second half of the alphabet will be on the second day. So if your surname starts with letter A, expect that you will be interviewed on the first day and chances are you might be the first person to be interviewed. So as far as I can remember, there are two rooms on the interview. One is the waiting room and the other one is of course the interview room. And while you are in the waiting room, you can chat with your fellow candidates. And also some of the employers or the representatives of hospitals are actually present on the interview day and they are on the waiting room. So while you are waiting for your turn on the interview, you can talk with some of the employers or staffs and ask them about what their hospital is, the working conditions, something like that. And then by the time that it's your turn to be interviewed, you will go to the interview room. And on the interview, you are going to sit there and there are two persons na mag-interview sa inyo. One is a Japanese interviewer and the other one is an interpreter because the interview is going to be in Japanese. That's why there is an interpreter. So you might ask, do I need to speak in Japanese during the interview? Of course not, because there is an interpreter. But if you can speak in Japanese or you know how to speak Japanese, you can speak in Japanese to impress the employer. But if you cannot, it's better to just speak in English just to avoid mistakes. And as far as I can remember, the only Japanese word that I said during my interview was arigatou gozaimasu and the rest is in English. But look, I am here in Japan, so don't be discouraged if you don't know how to speak in Japanese. And also another advice during the interview, as much as possible, use simple English. Don't use like complicated English or grammar because as much as possible, you want the interpreter to understand what you are saying. And the most important thing is he will be able to translate your answers to Japanese. So you might also ask, what are the questions that will be asked on the interview? So actually the questions on the interview is more on personal or opinionated questions. The first question is about, I think, your work in the Philippines, your work experience, and then the next questions are about Japan. Like for example, why did you choose to work in Japan? And also, what are the things that you are interested that are related to Japan? Like for example, foods, festivals, and then if you answer food or festival, of course, the follow-up question is also related to that. Like for example, what foods or what festival are you interested in? And also another question that I remembered is, how long are you planning to work in Japan? And they want a specific answer because at that time, my answer is, I am willing to work as long as I am physically fit or I am physically healthy to do the job of a nurse. And the interviewer, he keeps on insisting, how many years are you planning to work in Japan? And I think I answered 60 years old yata. So they really wanted like a concrete answer. And the rest of the questions are more on like opinionated or personal questions. So you don't really need to review like medical topics or terms because the questions are not going to be like that. And another tricky part of this interview is after the interview, they are going to repeat the same question again, but this time it will be video recorded. Yes, it will be recorded. And the reason for that is that video will be sent to your employers. So the questions will just be repeated to you, so you just need to hope that you will be able to answer the questions again the same way that you answered it the first time, or you'll be able to answer it better. So since it's video recorded, you must be physically or visually presentable. Like you need to wear like proper clothes as much as possible, semi-formal, formal, or smart casual will do. And also fix your hair and also try to smile throughout the whole video because it will leave a good impression on your employers. So after the interview, the next step is matching. So the POEA and GQuels is like the POEA of Japan. So they are going to send you an email, and through that email you will be able to access the website of the GQuels. And they are going to give you an ID and also a password. So once you enter your ID and your password on that website, you will be able to have access on the list of the hospitals who are hiring JPEPA candidates. So I think there are around 30 to 40 hospitals on the list. And then from that list, you are going to choose 10 hospitals. Yes, 10 hospitals out of those 30 or 40 hospitals. And you'll do it by ranking. So the first one is your priority hospital, and the 10th one is the last on your priority on the 10 hospitals that you choose. So what is this called matching or the matching process? So the POEA or the GQuels, ang gagawin nila is they are going to send the result of your interview or your video on those 10 hospitals that you choose. And kailangan at least one of those 10 hospitals must also choose you. And then once they choose you, it means that you are matched. And then that hospital will be your employer. And then it means that you are hired as a JPEPA candidate. And since sila na yung magiging employer nyo, you really need to think very carefully on choosing the 10 hospitals that you want to be matched with. That is why before you choose the 10 hospitals, what you should do is you must review the hospitals one by one. On the website, on the list of those 30 to 40 hospitals, you can actually click the name of the hospital and then see the information about that hospital. So you really need to read that and make sure that that is the best hospital that suits you. So the things that you must check is of course first, the location of the hospital, whether it's in Tokyo, it's in Osaka, it's in a province or in a city. It depends on which one you prefer. And also, the second thing is what type of facility is that? Is that a general hospital, a home care, or a rehabilitation hospital? And also, it is written there the number of vacancies. How many nurses do they want? So of course, the more vacancies, it means the more chances that you will be hired by that hospital. So there are some hospitals who are looking for like 1 or 2 nurses only, but there are some hospitals who are looking for like 3, 4, or 5 nurses. And of course, you must check the most important thing, which is salary and bonus. Yes, that is one of the most important thing that you must consider. And aside from that, you also must check the number of leaves, vacation leaves, and also the expenses, if the company is going to shoulder your expenses or not. Because there are some facilities where they are going to shoulder your apartment rent here in Japan, and also even the electric bill, the water bill, the gas, and some even offer free food. But some facilities, they don't offer that, so you must check that also. And also, one of the most important thing that you must take note is the study support or study time. Because of course, when you go to Japan, you need to study for the Japanese licensure exam. And there are some hospitals where they provide you like study time. For example, every day they will give you 3 hours or maybe half day to study, and that time is still paid and considered as work. While there are some hospitals which doesn't offer study time. And also some hospitals, they support you in your studies by enrolling you in a nursing school in Japan, or maybe hiring a private teacher to teach you. But there are some hospitals which doesn't have that support, so you must check that first. And that is very important because your main goal is to pass the nursing board exam here in Japan. And you can't do that if you don't have study time or you don't have study support. So make sure to check that first. So going back, after you choose the 10 hospitals you are just going to wait for the result of the matching. So the result of the matching usually would take like 1 or 2 months. So once the official result of the matching is out, you will be notified through email, and you can also check it on the website of the POEA. So if you are not successfully matched, you don't have to worry, because after that there is another set of matching. So because some hospitals, they weren't able to find the candidate that they want, that's why there is a second matching. On the second matching, you will choose again the hospital that you want, and then after a few weeks, the result of the second matching will be released. And those who are part of the list of the people who are matched are the official candidates of the JPEPA program. So after that, we will proceed to the next step, medical exams. So you need to undergo medical examinations, and the result of the medical exam, you will pass it on the POEA. And then after the medical exam, the next step is the language training. So the first language training will be about 6 months from November to the following year of May. So during the language training in the Philippines, the nurse candidates and the care worker candidates will be on the same language school or language training center. That's why, since there are so many of them, they will be divided into 2 language training centers. One is in TESDA in Taguig, and the other one is in NCF or Neongo Center Foundation in Sampaloc, I think. By the way, I was assigned on the TESDA Training Center in Taguig, so if you have questions about that, you can leave a comment on the comment section. But anyway, you cannot choose which training center you want. The Japan Foundation or the GQuest will be the one who will decide on which training center you will be assigned to. So you might ask, is the language training free? So the answer to that is yes, and it's not just free. You will receive an allowance while you are undergoing the language training center. So the school is free, the accommodation is free, the books and the uniform is also free, and the health insurance is also free. And then you will receive an allowance of, I think, 17 to 20,000 pesos per month. I'm not really sure, but you will receive an allowance every month on that whole 6 months of training. So on that 6-month period, you will study basic Japanese, as in from the very basic Japanese, like from the alphabets to memorizing words and simple sentences. You will study all of that for the whole 6 months. If you're familiar with the book, it's Minami Hongo Ichi and Me. You will study that on that period of 6 months. So after you completed the 6-month training, you will proceed to the second medical examination. But this time, the medical examination will be shouldered by your health card. But if there are some like abnormalities or problems on your medical, you will be asked to do a follow-up or maybe to buy some medications to correct those abnormalities, and that will be out of your own pocket. After you pass the medical examination, the next step is of course visa application. And the visa application, you don't need to do it by yourself. The Japan Foundation will help you on the visa application. And then once your visa is approved, that's the time that you will attend the PIDOS. By the way guys, the visa application and the airfare is free, but you will be asked by the POEA to pay for your PhilHealth and Pag-ibig, I think. So that's the time that you need some money to pay for those insurance. But the visa application and the airfare is free. So after the visa application and PIDOS and all those stuffs, it's time that you will go to Japan. So that's the most exciting part, because finally you will be in Japan. Then once you are in Japan, you will not be sent to your hospitals right away. Again, you need to undergo another 6 months of Japanese language training. But you don't need to be sad, because actually the 6-month language training here in Japan is one of the most memorable, exciting parts of this JPEPA journey, because the language training will be in Osaka for nurses, and then for caregivers it will be in, I think, Yokohama. So in my case, I was assigned in Osaka. You know guys, the training facility here in Japan is very nice. It's like a hotel. So it's like you are living in a hotel for 6 months. So that's how nice it is. So speaking of the language training here in Japan, it will be from June to November. And then the school is free, the accommodation is free, the books is also free. There's no uniform, so you are free to choose whatever clothes or fashion style you have. And of course the food. The food is free, and it's not just free, it is 3 times a day buffet style or eat all you can, tabihoday style. You will have eat all you can from breakfast, lunch up to dinner, but except for Sundays. During Sundays there's no food, but they will give you like a food allowance for that day. And also the insurance is not free, so you need to pay for your own health insurance, but it's not as expensive as I remember. So another nice thing about this 6-month training center in Osaka is during Sunday there is no classes, so you are free to go out Like you can ride the train, you can visit different places in Osaka or nearby places in Osaka. You can eat in a Japanese restaurant or talk to a random Japanese. So it's a really nice adventure, not only for yourself but also for your friends. And you can finally explore Japan. So during the 6-month training in Japan, it will be a bit higher level of Nihongo. And they're also going to start introducing to you some medical terms in Japanese. And also you will receive an allowance on that 6-month Japanese training in Osaka. I think it's 40 or 50,000 yen, I'm not really sure, but you will still receive an allowance. And then once the 6-month training is over, you will have like a small graduation, and then after that, your employer or representative from the hospital that you are going to will come to the training center para sunduin kayo, and then together with them, you will finally go to the hospital where you are going to work in. And that proceeds to the next step, which is deployment. And it happens around December. This is now the challenging part of this journey because you will need to work while studying for the board exam. Because as what I have said, you still don't have a license to practice nursing here in Japan. That's why while you are working, you need to study for the board exam. Also guys, the contract is only 3 years. And the board exam here in Japan is held only once a year during February. That's why you only have 3 chances to pass the board exam here in Japan. That's why study time and study support from your hospital is really important. So make sure to check that and clarify that with your employer. How many study time would you receive and what type of study support would you have? So you might ask, unahan ko na kayo, what if I was not able to pass the board exam on my 3rd attempt? So after that, what will happen? So the contract is just 3 years. So if hindi ka nakapasa on your 3rd attempt, sad to say you'll be sent home because your contract is now over. But the nice thing is, some hospitals give their candidates 1-year extension. So it means if you fail on your 3rd attempt, some hospitals, they can still give you 1-year extension. So it means you can still take the board exam for the 4th time. But not all hospitals give that chance to their candidates. And also there are deciding factors whether they will extend you or not. Like for example, if they lack manpower, there's a chance that they will still renew you or give you 1-year extension. And also it might also be based on your performance. And also another deciding factor whether they will give you an extension or not is based on your score on the last board exam. So if they find that you have chances of passing it on your 4th attempt, they might give you an extension of another 1 year. And then again, another question, what if you are not able to pass it on your 4th attempt? It's your last attempt. Is there still a chance that you can stay in Japan? The answer to that is actually yes. There is a chance that you will not be sent home and you can extend your contract here in Japan. And that is true what they called Kangoshi, or in English it is translated as licensed practical nurse. So some hospitals give their candidates a chance to take this Kangoshi exam or the licensed practical nurse examination. But some hospitals don't allow their candidates to take this exam, so it really depends on the facility or the hospital where you are working. So what is this licensed practical nurse examination? So basically it's also a license for nurses here in Japan. But the only difference is that license is not national. You cannot use it like anywhere in Japan. Like for example, if you take the exam here in Tokyo, you can practice nursing here in Tokyo and in other areas, but in some areas you cannot use that license. So that's the only difference. But the job description of licensed practical nurse and a nurse is almost the same. And also the examination for this licensed practical nurse is a bit easier compared to the exam of nurses. So if the hospital or facility will also allow you to take this Kangoshi or licensed practical nurse examination and you happen to pass the exam, you can now practice nursing here in Japan, and your contract will be extended for 4 years. 4 years after you pass that exam. So there will be an extension of another 4 years. So between that 4 years, you will still have a chance to take the national exam for nurses. By the way guys, I just want to remind you that the national exam for nurses here in Japan and also the licensed practical nurse examination, both of those exams are in Japanese. It's in Japanese, all of that. And actually, it's the same examination that the Japanese nurse graduates is going to take. So it's the same examination. That's why there is no excuse for you to have English translation. So it is the same exam that they are going to take. That's why it's all in Japanese. And after working and studying at the same time, you will take the examination, and then by the time that you pass the exam, you will be now considered as a registered nurse here in Japan, or what they call Kangoshi or say Kangoshi. So finally, that's the time that you'll be able to practice nursing here in Japan and work here in Japan for good. And also that's the time that your new adventure as a nurse here in Japan finally begins. So yes, that is the process on how you will be able to become a nurse here in Japan through the EPA or the JPEPA program. So before I end this video, I just want to give you some of my opinion on what are the pros and cons of this JPEPA program. For the pros or the advantages, it is a government-to-government program. That's why you are sure that this is not a scam and you will be able to go to Japan and work there as a nurse candidate or a care worker candidate. And the other thing is, of course, it's free. Actually, that is one of the main reasons why the EPA candidates choose this program, is because it's free. And the only thing that you're going to pay is the first medical examination. The second one is for free. And then also your PhilHealth and Pag-ibig. That's the only time that you will need to pay and use your own money, but the rest is for free. There's no like placement fee or something like that. It's all for free. And also another advantage is, of course, you'll be able to go to Japan, and Japan is like a very safe country, beautiful, it's very convenient. So that is one of the main advantage of this program. And also another thing is you will be able to study and learn Japanese for free. So personally, I think that learning a different language is like one of the biggest achievement that you can have, because learning a different language is not easy, especially Japanese. It's very difficult. And if in case you will not be able to pass the board exam and you will be asked to return to the Philippines, if you know how to speak Japanese, you can still find jobs like in Japanese companies, call center, or maybe an interpreter or teacher, something like that. So there are still lots of opportunities that will come to you even if you were sent home. And then there are disadvantages or cons in this JPEPA program. And the first thing is you need to learn Japanese, because Japanese people, most of them cannot speak English, so you really need to speak their language. And also even the medications, the diagnosis, and the charting is in Japanese, so you really need to study and learn Japanese. So it will really be a very long process. So if you are in a hurry and gusto mo na malaki na agad yung salary, it's not advisable that you enter this JPEPA program. Another disadvantage is you cannot practice nursing unless you pass the board exam. So on the first months or years, you will be asked to do jobs that are not for nursing. So it depends on the hospital. Some will ask you to do like jobs of caregivers, nursing aides, something like that. So it really depends on the contract of the hospital that you are working. So that's it, guys. I hope I was able to answer all of your questions regarding this matter about the JPEPA program of the Japan and Philippines and how you could become a nurse here in Japan. And if you have comments, suggestions, questions, or any concern, just leave a comment on the comment section below, and I will try to read all your comments and answer your questions as much as I can. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and see you on my next vlog. Ja, mata na!